The massive alien ships appeared at the edge of human space like dark metal clouds against the stars. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the sensors count the enemy vessels. 1,200 human ships spread across their solar system. It looked impressive to primitive eyes, but Kethvar had seen this pattern many times before. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 400 worlds using the same method. Show overwhelming force, wait for the inevitable surrender, accept the new subjects into the Empire as workers. It had worked every single time for 3,000 years. Kethavar's tactical officer, a tall blue-skinned alien with 6 arms, turned from his station. Admiral, our battle computer has finished analyzing the human fleet. Their technology appears to be several centuries behind ours. Chemical propulsion, basic nuclear weapons, primitive energy systems. Victory probability calculated at 99.9%. The Admiral nodded. This was exactly what he expected. The humans had only recently developed space travel. Their fastest ships took months to travel between planets in their own system. Meanwhile, Zephyrian vessels could cross the galaxy in weeks using quantum tunneling drives. Open a communication channel to the 3rd planet, Kethvar ordered. Standard, ultimatum protocol. The communication officer's tentacles danced across her controls. Channel open, Admiral. Kethvar straightened his uniform and activated the recording system. The same message that had been delivered to hundreds of species across the galaxy and primitive species of the planet you call Earth. I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire. You have witnessed our power as we entered your system. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your defenses cannot stop our advance. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. On 400 worlds, this moment had always brought immediate panic. Leaders scrambling to contact their militaries, citizens fleeing to underground shelters. The desperate search for some way to fight an enemy that possessed technology beyond their understanding. You have a choice, Kethvar continued. Submit to Zephyrian rule and your population will be preserved. You will work for the Empire, but you will live. Your children will be educated in proper civilization. Your species will survive as a useful part of our great society. The alternative hung in the air, unspoken but understood. Every species knew what happened to those who refused the Empire's generous offer. You have 72 standard hours to provide your answer. Choose wisely. The communication ended. Now came the waiting period. Usually, primitive species spent the full time in desperate conferences, searching for miracle solutions that did not exist. Some tried to evacuate their populations. Others attempted to hide their most important leaders and scientists. A few even launched pathetic attacks that accomplished nothing except demonstrating their complete helplessness. Kethvar had seen it all before. The pattern never changed. His science officer approached, her scaled green skin reflecting the bridge lights. Admiral, we have completed our detailed scans of the human civilization. Population approximately 8 billion on the primary world, with smaller colonies on 6 other planets and moons. Their industrial capacity is significant for such a young species, but their military technology remains extremely primitive. What about their space-based defenses? Kethvar asked. Minimal. A few armed stations around their gas giant planets, probably designed to protect mining operations. Some orbital platforms around Earth, but they appear to be scientific research facilities rather than military installations. Their largest warships are barely 1/10 the size of our smallest escorts. Kethvar smiled. Another easy conquest. The Zephyrian Empire would gain a healthy population of workers and a solar system, rich in natural resources. The humans would learn to be grateful for Zephyrian rule, just as all the others had. Time passed slowly on the bridge. Kethvar's officers monitored human communications, listening to their desperate planning sessions. The conversations were exactly what he expected. Military leaders arguing about impossible battle plans, politicians debating surrender terms, scientists frantically searching for weaknesses in Zephyrian technology. Admiral, the communication officer reported, we are receiving increased chatter from the human military networks. They appear to be moving ships and personnel, but not in any pattern our computers recognize as effective defense positioning. Panic responses, Kethvar said dismissively. They know they cannot fight us, but they must appear to be doing something for their populations. Let them waste their energy. 60 hours into the countdown, something unusual happened. Human communications suddenly became much more organized. The panicked chatter stopped. Instead, brief coded messages passed between their military units. Kethvar's intelligence officers reported that human civilian populations were not fleeing to shelters or evacuation ships. Instead, they seemed to be going about their normal daily activities. Strange behavior, the tactical officer observed. Most species enter a state of social collapse during the final hours before our deadline. The humans appear to be calm. Kethvar frowned. In 3,000 years of conquest, he had never seen this pattern. Perhaps they have decided to surrender early, monitor for any official communications. But no surrender came. As the 72nd hour approached, human space remained eerily quiet. Their military ships held positions that made no tactical sense. Their planetary defenses showed no signs of activation. Most puzzling of all, their leaders had not requested any negotiations or attempts to bargain for better surrender terms. Time remaining, 15 minutes, the communication officer announced. Kethvar stood from his command chair. In 15 minutes, he would give the order to begin the demonstration. Standard protocol called for the destruction of one major target to show the futility of resistance. Usually this convinced any remaining holdouts to surrender immediately. Time remaining 5 minutes. The Admiral activated the ship-wide communication system. All vessels prepare for demonstration bombardment. Target, the large natural satellite, orbiting the primary planet. Full power to main weapons. Across the Zephyrian fleet, massive energy cannons began charging, the weapon systems that could reduce a moon to glowing debris in minutes. The power that had convinced 400 species that resistance was hopeless. Time remaining, 1 minute. Kethvar watched the tactical display. Human ships remained in their puzzling positions. No last-minute evacuation attempts. No desperate attacks. No communications begging for mercy. Time expired, Admiral, the communication officer reported. Very well, Kethvar said. Humans of Earth, you have failed to respond to our generous offer. We will now demonstrate the futility of resistance. Witness the power of the Zephyrian Empire. He turned to his weapons officer. Fire. But before the energy cannons could discharge, something impossible happened. Every human ship, station, and orbital platform in the entire solar system went completely dark. No energy signatures, no communications, no movement. It was as if human civilization had simply turned itself off. The bridge fell silent. In 3,000 years of galactic conquest, nothing like this had ever happened. What does this mean? The tactical officer whispered. Kethvar stared at the display showing 8 billion humans and their entire space-based civilization, sitting in complete electromagnetic silence. His battle computer had no explanation. Its vast databases contained no record of any species ever responding to Zephyrian ultimatums in this way. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kethvar felt a chill of uncertainty. The humans had not surrendered. They had not attacked. They had not fled. They had done something entirely outside the Empire's experience, something that suggested they might not be as primitive as everyone believed. Admiral Kethvar stared at the tactical display for 20 minutes before making his decision. The human blackout was obviously some kind of surrender preparation. Perhaps they were powering down their defenses to make the transition to Zephyrian rule easier. It was unusual but not necessarily threatening. All ships, advance to inter-system positions, he ordered. Maintain standard conquest formation. The humans are clearly preparing to submit. The Zephyrian fleet moved forward like a dark tide, 1,000 massive warships arranged in the perfect pattern that had intimidated 400 species into surrender. The formation was a work of art, calculated by artificial intelligence to create maximum psychological impact while maintaining optimal tactical advantage. Kethvar's science officer monitored the advancing fleet. Admiral, we are detecting no response from human forces. All their ships remain powered down. Their planetary defense systems show no activation. As expected, Kethvar replied, "Begin standard occupation procedures once we reach the inner planets. Prepare teams to take control of their government and military command centers." The fleet passed the orbit of the human's outermost gas giant without incident, then the orbit of the next planet. Still no response from the strangely silent human civilization. Kethvar began to relax. Another successful conquest, even if it had followed an unusual pattern. That was when the asteroid belt exploded. The first indication of trouble was a communications officer screaming, "Admiral, massive energy signatures throughout the asteroid field, thousands of them." Before Kethvar could respond, space around his fleet erupted in violence. What had appeared to be ordinary space rocks revealed themselves as weapons platforms. Thousands upon thousands of hidden cannons, missile launchers, and energy projectors that had been disguised as asteroids for decades. "Shields up, all weapons to maximum," Kethvar shouted, but his orders were lost in the chaos erupting around him. The human weapons were like nothing in Zephyrian experience. Instead of energy beams that their shields could deflect, the humans fired solid metal rods accelerated to incredible speeds. The tungsten projectiles punched through Zephyrian energy barriers as if they were paper, tearing massive holes in ship hulls designed to withstand plasma bombardment. "Impossible," the tactical officer screamed as his display showed Zephyrian dreadnoughts, ships that had never been damaged in battle, breaking apart under the relentless kinetic assault. "Their weapons are primitive. Our shields should stop anything they can produce." But the humans had not relied on energy weapons. They had weaponized physics itself. Mass drivers hidden throughout the asteroid belt launched telephone pole-sized rods of dense metal at significant fractions of light speed. When objects that massive moved that fast, no known defense could stop them. Worse, the projectiles were just the beginning. Swarms of small objects began launching from the asteroid field. Kethvar's sensors identified them as missiles, but missiles unlike anything in the galactic databases. These weapons moved with impossible agility, changing direction in ways that should have destroyed them with gravitational forces. "What are those things?" Kethvar demanded as hundreds of Zephyrian ships found themselves under attack by missiles that seemed to think for themselves. His science officer checked her readings, with shaking hands. "Admiral, the human missiles appear to be alive. They are not following programmed courses. Each one is making independent tactical decisions." The missiles were humanity's second surprise, self-replicating nanobotic weapons, tiny machines that could rebuild themselves using any available material. When they struck Zephyrian ships, they did not simply explode. They began consuming the hulls, converting enemy vessels into more copies of themselves. Admiral Kethvar watched in horror as the heavy cruiser Eternal Victory began dissolving from the inside out. The nanobotic missiles had breached its hull and were systematically converting the ship's structure into more weapon systems. Within minutes, the cruiser was gone, replaced by a cloud of tiny machines looking for new targets. "Fleet status report," Kethvar shouted over the alarms filling his bridge. "Admiral, we have lost 217 ships in the first wave," the tactical officer reported. "Enemy weapons are continuing to fire from positions throughout the asteroid belt. Our return fire is having minimal effect." The Zephyrian energy weapons were designed to fight other energy weapon-equipped fleets. They could overwhelm shields and melt armor. But the human asteroid forts were solid rock-hiding metal weapons platforms. Energy beams that could destroy a battleship barely scratched the surface of asteroids that were mostly empty space and loose stone. "Sir, new contact," the sensor operator called out. "The fourth planet in this system is moving." Kethvar turned to look at the long-range display. The planet the humans called Mars was indeed moving, but not in any natural way. Massive structures were emerging from beneath its surface. The entire world was opening like a mechanical flower, revealing construction on a scale that defied belief. "By all the stars," the science officer whispered. "The entire planet is artificial. They have converted it into a weapons platform." What the humans had called terraforming had been something else entirely. For 2 centuries, they had been hollowing out Mars and converting it into the largest mass driver ever constructed. The planet's core had been replaced with magnetic acceleration coils thousands of kilometers long. Mars fired. The projectile was a metallic asteroid the size of a city, accelerated to 15% of light speed. It crossed the solar system in minutes and struck the center of the Zephyrian formation with the force of a stellar collision. 50 Zephyrian ships simply ceased to exist, vaporized by the impact. 100 more were crippled by debris traveling at relativistic speeds. The carefully planned formation that had intimidated 400 species dissolved into chaos as surviving ships scattered in desperate evasion maneuvers. "Admiral," the boat communication officer screamed. "The outer planets Jupiter's moons are launching." Kethvar looked at his display and saw something that broke his understanding of warfare. The gas giant's 4 largest moons were moving, accelerated by engines, hidden beneath their surfaces. 4 weaponized worlds, each one aimed at different sections of his fleet. But the final horror was still coming. As the Zephyrian fleet reeled from the asteroid belt ambush and the Mars cannon, new contacts began appearing on sensors. Hundreds of ships that had not been there moments before, rising from the radio shadows of planets and moons. "Where did they come from?" Kethvar demanded. "Admiral," his science officer said in a voice filled with disbelief, "I believe they were hiding. The human ships were powered down and positioned where our sensors could not detect them. They have been waiting in ambush." The human fleet was revealed to be 3 times larger than initial estimates. Worse, their ships were nothing like the primitive vessels the Zephyrian computers had cataloged. These were warships that moved with impossible acceleration and fired weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. What had appeared to be human cargo haulers revealed hidden missile bays. Mining ships deployed energy cannons. Even civilian passenger transports began launching attack drones. The humans had disguised their entire military as a merchant fleet. "Status report," Kethvar shouted, as another wave of kinetic projectiles tore through his formation. "Admiral, we have lost 612 ships. Enemy casualties appear to be 0. Their weapons they are beyond our experience." Kethvar realized the truth with growing horror. The humans had not been surprised by the Zephyrian arrival. They had been expecting it. Everything about their response had been planned and prepared. The electromagnetic silence, the hidden weapons, the disguised fleet, all of it had been designed specifically to destroy forces exactly like his. The species he had dismissed as primitive had somehow anticipated galactic contact and prepared accordingly. They had spent decades, maybe centuries, turning their entire solar system into a trap designed to destroy any invasion force, and he had flown directly into it. "Admiral, we are receiving a communication from the humans," the communication officer reported. Kethvar straightened his uniform, trying to maintain some dignity in the face of complete tactical defeat. "Put it through." A human face appeared on the screen. Female, middle-aged, wearing what appeared to be a military uniform. She spoke in calm, measured tones that somehow made her words more terrifying than any alien war cry. "Zephyrian Fleet. This is Fleet Admiral Rebecca Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. You came to our system expecting surrender. Instead, you found war. If you wish to discuss terms for your own surrender, please respond on this frequency. You have 1 hour to decide." The communication ended, leaving Kethvar staring at a blank screen. In 6 hours, the humans had destroyed more than half of a fleet that had taken the Zephyrian Empire 3 centuries to build. They had done it using weapons and tactics that seemed to come from a completely different understanding of how space combat should work. Worse, they had done it while suffering no apparent losses of their own. For the first time in the Empire's 3,000-year history of conquest, it was the Zephyrians who were being offered terms of surrender. Admiral Kethvar made the only decision that made sense. "All ships retreat to the outer system. We need distance to regroup and call for reinforcements." The surviving Zephyrian vessels began moving away from the inner planets, hoping to reach a safe position where they could assess their losses and plan their next move. Of the original fleet of 1,000 ships, fewer than 400 remained in fighting condition. It was the worst military disaster in the Empire's history, but as the fleet retreated, Kethvar discovered that the humans had prepared for this possibility too. "Admiral, We have multiple contacts pursuing us, the tactical officer reported. Human ships are maintaining distance but matching our course. How many? Sir, that's impossible. Our sensors show over 2,000 human vessels in pursuit. Kethvar stared at the display. Where had all these ships come from? The humans had revealed a fleet 3 times larger than expected during the battle, and now even more vessels were appearing from nowhere. His science officer looked up from her station with confusion written across her scaled features. Admiral, I have been analyzing the pursuing ships. Many of them appear to be converted civilian vessels. Cargo haulers, mining ships, passenger transports. But they are all showing military-grade engine signatures and weapon systems. The terrible truth was becoming clear. The humans had not just prepared a military response to invasion. They had militarized their entire civilization. Every cargo ship was a disguised warship. Every mining vessel carried hidden weapons. Even their civilian passenger transports had been converted into attack craft. Sir, incoming communication from the lead. Human pursuit ship, the communication officer announced. Put it through. A new human face appeared on the screen. This one was younger, female, with short dark hair and cold eyes. She wore the uniform of what appeared to be a merchant marine officer, but the ship behind her was clearly equipped for war. Zephyrian Fleet. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force auxiliary vessel Profit Margin. You are attempting to leave human space without permission. Stop your engines and prepare to be boarded for inspection. The communication ended before Kethvar could respond. He turned to his tactical officer. Analysis of the ship that sent that message? Admiral, it appears to be a converted cargo hauler, but our sensors detect antimatter weapons, particle beam cannons, and a reactor signature, suggesting engines capable of at least 50 gravities acceleration. 50 gravities. Most Zephyrian warships could manage 20 gravities for short periods. This human cargo ship could outrun and outgun vessels designed specifically for space combat. Admiral, the science officer said quietly, I think we need to accept an uncomfortable possibility. The humans have been preparing for galactic contact much longer than we realized. Everything we observed about their civilization may have been deliberately designed to appear primitive. The pursuing human fleet began to spread out, moving to surround the retreating Zephyrians. Their ships moved with precision that suggested extensive combat training and coordination. These were not panicked civilians pressed into emergency military service. These were experienced warriors using disguised warships. Sir, the human ships are deploying some kind of small craft, the tactical officer reported. Thousands of them. They appear to be fighters or attack drones. The small craft swarmed around the Zephyrian fleet like angry insects. But instead of attacking immediately, they seemed to be studying their targets, scanning, probing, learning the weaknesses of alien technology. Admiral, we are receiving detailed scans from the human fighters. They appear to be analyzing our ship designs, weapon systems, and defensive capabilities. Kethvar felt a chill of realization. The humans were not just fighting them, they were learning from them. In the middle of a running battle, human forces were conducting scientific analysis of Zephyrian technology. Sir, priority message from the damaged cruiser Stellar Wind. They report that human boarding pods have attached to their hull. Enemy forces are attempting to breach their defenses. Impossible, Kethvar said. We are traveling at high speed. No boarding action should be possible under these conditions, but the humans had found a way. Small, heavily armored pods launched from their pursuit ships were somehow matching velocity with retreating Zephyrian vessels and attaching themselves to alien hulls. Each pod contained a small team of human soldiers equipped for zero-gravity combat. The reports from boarded ships were disturbing. Human soldiers moved through Zephyrian vessels with incredible speed and efficiency. They seemed to know exactly where to go and what to target. Worse, they were taking prisoners and capturing intact technology samples. Admiral, the Stellar Wind reports that human soldiers have reached their computer core. The boarding team is downloading our entire tactical database. Kethvar realized what was happening. The humans were not just defeating the Zephyrian fleet. They were stealing everything the Empire knew about space warfare, ship design, and military tactics. Every captured vessel became a source of intelligence that would make human forces even more dangerous. Sir, Communication from Captain Chen again. The human captain appeared on screen, but this time she was clearly aboard a Zephyrian vessel. Behind her, Kethavar could see alien corridor designs and captured crew members. Admiral, we have now boarded and captured 6 of your vessels. Your soldiers fight with honor, but they cannot match human performance in zero-gravity combat. We are prepared to offer honorable surrender terms for your remaining ships. What terms? Kethavar asked, though he dreaded the answer. Complete disarmament and cooperation with human forces. In exchange, your crew members will be treated according to standard military protocols. No harm will come to those who surrender. Peacefully. The communication ended, leaving Kethavar to contemplate an impossible choice. Surrender to a species the Empire had classified as primitive, or continue a running battle against an enemy that seemed to possess infinite resources and impossible capabilities. His tactical officer provided another disturbing report. Admiral, our long-range sensors are detecting additional human ships moving to intercept our course. They appear to be coming from every planet and moon in this system. The humans have forces positioned everywhere. How is that possible? We observed their civilization for months before beginning this operation. They simply do not have the industrial capacity to support this many military vessels. Sir, the science officer said hesitantly, I believe we may have fundamentally misunderstood human civilization. What we interpreted as primitive industrial development may have been camouflaged military production. They may have been building warships while making it appear they were constructing civilian infrastructure. The evidence was overwhelming. The humans had somehow anticipated contact with galactic civilization and had spent decades preparing for exactly this scenario. Their entire society had been designed as a weapon aimed at any force that might threaten their independence. Admiral, incoming priority communication from the human flagship. Admiral Morrison appeared on screen again. This time she was not offering surrender terms. She was providing information. Admiral Kethavar, our forces have now captured 12 of your vessels and taken over 400 prisoners. Analysis of your computer systems indicates that you were expecting reinforcements from the Zephyrian Empire. We estimate it will take approximately 2 years for additional forces to reach this system. She paused, letting the implications sink in. You have 2 options. Continue this engagement, in which case we will systematically destroy or capture your remaining ships over the next several weeks. Or accept immediate surrender and begin negotiations for a peaceful resolution to this conflict. Morrison's expression was calm, professional, but her eyes held an intensity that suggested she was perfectly prepared to carry out her threats. You have 1 hour to decide, Admiral, but understand that human patience is not unlimited. We have prepared for this day for a very long time, and we are fully committed to protecting our independence by any means necessary. The communication ended, leaving Kethavar alone with the ruins of the greatest military disaster in Zephyrian history. In less than 12 hours, a species he had dismissed as primitive had destroyed more than half his fleet, captured dozens of his ships, and demonstrated technological capabilities that exceeded anything in the Empire's databases. Worse, they had done it while making it clear that this was only a small demonstration of their actual military potential. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Kethavar began to understand that the Zephyrian Empire might have made a terrible mistake. The weeks that followed were a nightmare for the surviving Zephyrian forces. Admiral Kethavar had chosen to continue fighting rather than surrender, hoping that his crews could survive long enough for reinforcements to arrive from the Empire. It was a decision he regretted more with each passing day. The humans did not simply hunt down the remaining alien ships, they played with them. Zephyrian vessels would detect human forces approaching, prepare for battle, and then find themselves facing empty space. The human ships would appear somewhere else entirely, as if they could move through dimensions the aliens did not understand. Admiral, the supply ship Gentle Current has gone silent, his communication officer reported. Last message indicated they were under attack by human forces that appeared from inside an asteroid field. Kethavar nodded grimly. It was the same pattern every time. Human ships would emerge from hiding places that should have been impossible. Empty space would suddenly reveal hidden vessels, Asteroids would open up to release swarms of attack craft. Even more disturbing, human forces seemed to know exactly where Zephyrian ships would be before they arrived there. Sir, communication from the heavy cruiser Iron Resolve. Captain Thekmore reports that human forces somehow predicted their course change and were waiting in ambush. How is that possible? Kethvar demanded. We have been using random navigation patterns. There should be no way to predict our movements. His science officer looked up from her station with exhaustion in her eyes. Admiral, I have been analyzing human tactical patterns for weeks. I believe they are not predicting our movements, they are influencing them. Explain. The humans appear to be using psychological warfare on a scale we have never encountered. They allow us to detect certain information while hiding other data. They make some areas appear safe while others seem dangerous. Without realizing it, we are being guided into the exact positions they want us to occupy. It was a terrifying possibility. The humans were not just fighting a military campaign. They were conducting a massive psychological experiment with the entire Zephyrian fleet as test subjects. Every tactical decision, every course change, every attempt to find safety was being manipulated by an enemy that understood alien psychology better than the aliens understood themselves. The psychological pressure was beginning to show. Crew. Members on multiple ships were reporting strange dreams and unexplained anxiety. Others claimed to be receiving visions of human culture and technology that seemed impossibly detailed. Admiral, we have a problem, the communication officer announced. The crew of the destroyer Starcutter has surrendered to human forces without engaging in combat. Captain Veltar sent a message saying his crew could no longer bear the psychological stress of continued fighting. It was the third ship to surrender without being forced to do so. Something about prolonged contact with human forces was breaking down Zephyrian military discipline in ways that made no sense. Sir, we are receiving a wideband transmission from human sources. They appear to be broadcasting on all frequencies simultaneously. What kind of transmission? Music, Admiral. Human cultural expressions, art, poetry, philosophical discussions. The broadcasts are somehow bypassing our communication filters and reaching crew stations throughout the fleet. Kethvar closed his eyes. The humans were weaponizing their own culture. Instead of propaganda or threats, they were sharing the most beautiful and profound aspects of human civilization with their enemies. It was having a devastating effect on Zephyrian morale. Crew members who listened to human music reported feeling emotions they could not understand. Alien soldiers exposed to human art began questioning the Empire's methods of conquest. Worst of all, many Zephyrians found themselves genuinely curious about these strange beings who fought like demons but created beauty like angels. Admiral, his tactical officer said quietly, I have been listening to the human cultural broadcasts. Their music is extraordinary. Their art shows perspectives I never imagined. How can a species capable of such beauty also be capable of such devastating warfare? That was exactly the question the humans wanted them to ask. By revealing the depth and richness of their civilization, they were forcing the Zephyrians to confront an uncomfortable truth. They were not fighting primitive barbarians. They were fighting beings who might be more advanced in ways that had nothing to do with technology. Sir, priority message from Captain Chen of the Human Auxiliary Forces. The young human captain appeared on screen again, but this time she was not aboard a captured Zephyrian vessel. She was in what appeared to be a medical facility, tending to wounded alien prisoners. Admiral Kethvar, we have been treating the injured crew members from the ships we have captured. Your soldiers are brave and honorable. They do not deserve to suffer because of political decisions made by leaders they have never met. The camera showed human medical personnel working alongside alien doctors to treat Zephyrian wounded. Enemy. Soldiers were receiving the same level of care as human casualties. It was a sight that defied everything the Empire had taught about warfare. We are prepared to offer medical assistance to your remaining ships, Captain Chen continued. No strings attached, no demands for surrender. We will provide supplies and medical personnel to help your wounded, then withdraw to allow you to continue your mission. The communication ended, leaving Kethvar staring at an offer that made no tactical sense. Why would an enemy provide aid to forces they were actively fighting? What possible military advantage could the humans gain from helping their opponents? Admiral, his medical officer approached the command station. We do have significant casualties from the running battles. Medical supplies are running low. If the humans are genuinely offering assistance, it could be a trap, Cathvar replied, but his voice lacked conviction. The humans had already demonstrated that they could destroy the remaining Zephyrian forces anytime they chose. They had no need for elaborate deceptions. Sir, incoming communication from Fleet Admiral Morrison. The senior human commander appeared on screen, and behind her Cathvar could see what appeared to be a war room, filled with displays showing the positions of both human and Zephyrian forces. Admiral, we have been monitoring your fleet's condition. Your crews have fought with tremendous courage, but continuing this engagement serves no purpose. Your reinforcements will not arrive for 18 months. Your supplies are running low. Your casualties are mounting. Morrison paused, and when she continued, her voice carried a note of genuine respect. The Zephyrian Empire has never encountered an enemy like humanity, and humanity has never faced opponents with your level of honor and dedication. This conflict has been a learning experience for both our species. She gestured to the displays behind her, which showed detailed analyses of Zephyrian technology and tactics. We have learned much from studying your technology and methods. In return, we would like to offer you the opportunity to learn about ours, not as prisoners or subjects, but as equals engaged in mutual exchange of knowledge. The offer was stunning. Instead of demanding surrender, the humans were proposing a partnership between their species and the empire that had come to conquer them. We understand that you were following orders when you came to our system, Morrison continued. We hold no hatred for soldiers doing their duty. Our conflict is not with the Zephyrian military. Our problem is with an empire that believes conquest is the only path to galactic civilization. The communication ended with an invitation that changed everything. The humans were not just offering to spare the surviving Zephyrian forces. They were offering to teach them a completely different way of thinking about relationships between species. Admiral, his science officer said quietly, I have been analyzing everything we have learned about human civilization during this engagement. Their technology, their tactics, their cultural expressions, their treatment of prisoners. I believe we may have encountered something unprecedented in galactic history. What do you mean? A species that has developed the capability for absolute warfare while maintaining the wisdom to choose peace when victory is assured. They could have destroyed us completely. Instead, they are offering us a chance to join them as partners rather than subjects. Cathvar looked around his bridge at the faces of officers who had served the Empire faithfully for decades. He saw exhaustion, confusion, and something else. Hope. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire was being offered an alternative to conquest and submission. The humans were proposing a third option that no one had ever imagined possible, a future where strength did not require domination. Admiral Cathvar stood in the airlock of his flagship, waiting to board the human vessel Indomitable. 3 weeks had passed since Fleet Admiral Morrison's offer of negotiations, and the Zephyrian commander had finally accepted that continued fighting would accomplish nothing except the deaths of his remaining crew members. The human ship was smaller than a Zephyrian dreadnought, but somehow felt more impressive. Its hull bore the scars of recent combat, but the vessel radiated an aura of quiet competence that spoke of a military force confident in its abilities. Human guards escorted Cathvar through corridors that were surprisingly similar to Zephyrian designs. Functional, efficient, but with small touches that suggested the occupants valued beauty as well as practicality. Artwork decorated the walls, and the lighting was warmer than the harsh illumination typical of alien military vessels. Admiral Cathvar. Fleet Admiral Morrison stood as he entered her conference room. She was smaller than most Zephyrian females, but her presence filled the space with quiet authority. Thank you for accepting our invitation to negotiate. Cathvar took the offered seat across from her. Fleet Admiral Morrison, I must confess your invitation surprised me. In 3,000 years of galactic conquest, no species has ever offered negotiations to the Zephyrian Empire after achieving military victory. Morrison smiled. We are not like other species you have encountered, Admiral. Please, before we begin formal discussions, I would like to offer my condolences for the losses your fleet has suffered. Your crews fought with tremendous courage and skill. In different circumstances, I believe our species could have been allies rather than enemies. The expression of genuine sympathy from an enemy commander was unlike anything in Kethvar's experience. He had expected either gloating, triumph, or cold efficiency. Instead, he found himself facing a professional soldier who seemed to understand the weight of command and the cost of war. Admiral Morrison, I must ask, your forces could have destroyed my entire fleet in the initial engagement. Why did you allow us to survive? Because destroying you would have served no purpose except revenge, Morrison replied. Our goal was never to eliminate the Zephyrian Empire. Our goal was to prevent you from conquering us. Once that was accomplished, continued, killing would have been wasteful and dishonorable. She activated a holographic display that showed the current positions of both human and Zephyrian forces throughout the solar system. We have been monitoring your communications with your home government, Admiral. We know that the Empire has classified this engagement as a complete disaster and is preparing to send a larger fleet to finish what your forces began. Kethvar nodded. He had expected as much. The Empire's response to military failure was always escalation. We also know, Morrison continued, that you have been ordered to fight to the death rather than surrender or negotiate with us. The Empire considers any communication with defeated enemies to be a sign of weakness. That is correct, Kethvar admitted. By meeting with you, I am violating direct orders from the Imperial Command. When I return, I will likely face court-martial and execution. That is why you are not returning as a defeated commander, Admiral. You are returning as humanity's first ambassador to the Zephyrian Empire. Morrison's words sent a shock through Kethvar's system. I do not understand. We are offering you a choice, Admiral. You can return to the Empire with news of your defeat and face the consequences of failure. Or you can return with a proposal that will change the relationship between our species forever. The holographic display changed to show star maps of the galaxy, with territories marked for hundreds of different species. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire has grown through conquest. You offer species a choice between slavery and death, and most choose slavery. It has been an effective method of expansion, but it is not the only way to build a galactic civilization. Morrison gestured to the display. Humanity proposes an alternative. Instead of conquest, we offer partnership. Instead of demanding submission, we invite cooperation. Instead of threatening destruction, we promise mutual benefit. The Empire will never accept such terms, Kethvar said automatically. The Zephyrian way has succeeded for millennia. Why would we abandon methods that have built the greatest civilization in galactic history? Because your methods have also created the greatest potential for galactic destruction in history, Morrison replied. Every species you have conquered dreams of revenge. Every world you control seethes with hidden rebellion. You rule through fear, but fear eventually turns to hatred, and hatred eventually turns to war. She changed the display to show detailed analyses of human military capabilities. Admiral, during our engagement, your forces encountered only a small fraction of humanity's actual military potential. The weapons we used against you were designed and built specifically to counter Zephyrian technology. We have been preparing for this confrontation for 3 centuries. The scale of the preparations was staggering. Hidden weapons platforms throughout the solar system, disguised warships that appeared to be civilian vessels, entire planets converted into military installations, a civilization that had spent centuries preparing for galactic contact by assuming that contact would mean war. But we do not want war, Admiral. We want partnership. The same creativity and determination that we use to design weapons can be applied to building a better future for all galactic species. Morrison deactivated the display and looked directly into Kethvar's eyes. We are offering the Zephyrian Empire a choice that no species has ever been given before. Join us as equals in building a new kind of galactic civilization, or continue the old pattern of conquest and rebellion until it eventually destroys both our species. What exactly are you proposing? Complete restructuring of the Empire's expansion policies. No more forced conquest. No more ultimatums to primitive species. Instead, we offer genuine cooperation between species, with mutual benefit and respect for each civilization's independence. Kethvar felt the weight of 3,000 years of imperial history pressing down on him. Everything Morrison was suggesting went against the fundamental principles that had built the Empire. And if the Empire refuses your offer, Morrison's expression became serious. Then humanity will do whatever is necessary to protect our independence and the independence of any species that asks for our help. We have demonstrated that we can destroy Zephyrian military forces. We are prepared to extend that protection to any world that chooses freedom over conquest. The implication was clear. Humanity was prepared to fight a galactic war against the entire Empire if necessary. More disturbing, they seemed confident they could win such a war. You are asking me to return to the Empire and convince them to abandon everything that has made us great, Kethvar said. No, Admiral. We are asking you to help us make you greater. The Zephyrian Empire's greatest strength has always been your ability to bring different species together. We are simply proposing that you do it through invitation rather than conquest. Morrison stood and walked to a viewport that showed the blue-white marble of Earth hanging in space. 300 years ago, humanity detected the first signals from galactic civilization. We faced a choice. We could remain hidden and hope that galactic powers would ignore us, or we could prepare to defend ourselves against any threat. She turned back to face Kethvar. We chose to prepare for war while hoping for peace. Everything you have seen of human military capability was built because we assumed that galactic contact would mean galactic conflict. We were right about the conflict, but we hope we can still achieve the peace. The conference room fell silent as Kethvar considered them. Impossible offer. Return to the Empire with news of devastating military defeat, or return with a proposal that could change the course of galactic history. Admiral Morrison, if I present your terms to the Imperial Command, they will likely execute me as a traitor before reading your proposal. Then do not present our terms, Admiral. Present your own. Morrison activated a recording device on the table. Everything that happened in this solar system will be reported as your victory. Your forces encountered human military capabilities, evaluated them as a potential threat to the Empire, and negotiated a strategic alliance rather than pursuing costly conquest. That is not what happened. That is what happened from a certain point of view, Admiral. You successfully prevented humanity from becoming an enemy of the Empire. You negotiated the first voluntary alliance in Zephyrian history. You demonstrated that there are alternatives to conquest that serve the Empire's interest even better than military victory. Kethvar stared at the human commander in amazement. Not only was she offering to spare his life, she was offering to make him a hero. Why would you do this for me? Because changing the galaxy requires people willing to take risks for peace instead of war. You have proven your courage in battle, Admiral. Now we need you to prove your wisdom in peace. Morrison extended her hand in the human gesture of friendship. The choice is yours, Admiral. Return to the Empire as the commander who suffered the worst military defeat in galactic history, or return as the diplomat who negotiated the most important alliance in galactic history. Kethvar looked at the offered hand and realized he was facing the most